Hello and welcome to Module 3 of Music Business Essentials. The module is called Understanding Music Publishing. Now, my name's N.W.A, as I'm hopeful that you are aware by now, and let me explain how I put together this course very briefly. We've divided the lessons into modules. This module, Understanding Music Publishing, is clearly aimed at songwriters. Now, if you have jumped straight to this module, I do suggest at some time you do go back and understand the legal basis of the music industry, because a lot of what we talk about here is built on those earlier lessons. However, if you're in need of a quick understanding of music publishing, I pretty much understand why that would be the case. And that is because music publishing is vital to anyone who is a songwriter, either established or aspiring. So, in order to make sense of this particular unit, we need to understand what music publishers do and, in fact, why they even exist. And so this lesson number 1, explains why music publishing exists. So, from our earlier classes, the ones that talked about copyright, we've established that the industry that is based around the ownership of copyright in songs and the industry based around the ownership of copyright in sound recordings emerges, if you like, from the concept of copyright. The fact that you are able to reproduce either your song or your recording means that you have a legal basis for earning an income from those works. So, if you own copyright, or at least control copyright in songs, you have the entitlement to derive revenue from the exploitation of those songs. The same applies for sound recordings. Now, those two things, songs and sound recordings, form the basis of the music publishing industry and the recording industry. And as we saw at the very end of the last module, those two things are related. When people make sound recordings, generally speaking, they're making a recording of a performance of a song. So the song remains the starting point of the entire recorded music industry. All right, so publishing has a basis in copyright law. I've said that a few times, and if you haven't latched onto that idea yet, I really suggest you go back and look at some of those earlier lessons. Very important thing to understand, particularly if you're a songwriter. So when a song is reproduced by way of a recording, or when that song is communicated to the public either directly or by way of a recorded version of that song, the permission of the songwriter is required. Now, we've looked at a few different ways that that permission is given and how income is generated from that. But let's think about this. Songwriters probably don't have the time or, to be honest, the inclination to generate that income. They'd love to generate income, but maybe they don't know how. They don't have the time to collect that income, and they certainly don't have the time or probably the knowledge to protect the goose that lays the golden egg, i.e. the copyright in the song. So people observed this. They observed how copyright works, and they observed the reality of what a songwriter is able and is willing to do. So not surprisingly, some fairly smart people a long time ago said, hey, I reckon there's a business in this. And that business is based in deriving income and collecting income from those copyright assets called songs. And when that realization happened, of course, people saw dollar signs and went, I think there's a business in this. And the business model of music publishing emerged to fulfill that need. So let's have a bit of a closer look at the business of music publishing. It's actually quite simple, and I can summarize it in one paragraph. Songwriters appoint publishers to collect the revenue that is due to them from the exploitation of their songs, and secondly, the publishers then use their skills, their contacts, their systems, often developed over decades, to try and maximize the amount of revenue that is generated by those songs. That's it. A publisher looks at a batch of songs written by a songwriter and says, you know what, I think with our skills, our contacts, our systems, and the backing of the law of copyright, we can ensure that these songs, or at least hope that these songs can generate an income, and when that income is generated, it's our job to collect it. Now that is a very appealing service if you're a songwriter, and that is why songwriters are attracted to publishing, and of course the industry of publishing is attracted to good songwriters. It's a marriage made in musical heaven. All right, so publishers have to also recognise that if they're going to generate income from songs, they need to protect the legal basis of generating that income, and that is copyright. So another role for a music publisher is to stand as the defender of copyright against potential infringement. If somebody decides to use a songwriter's work without the songwriter's permission, the publisher steps in and says, no, 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 you won't be doing that because that is the basis of that songwriter's income earning potential and also our income earning potential as a publisher. So they have three roles in a sense: the role of generating income, the role of collecting that income, and the role of protecting the copyright that generates that income or allows them to generate that income. Now, they're three very important roles. If you're a songwriter and you've got a batch of songs, you want somebody doing those three things. And it's something that songwriters are prepared to pay for. That's the business of music publishing, that the publisher fulfills those three roles and the songwriter pays for it. But it's not like going to a motor mechanic. You don't ask them to provide a service, and at the end of the day, they send you an invoice for the work that they did. It's based on a percentage, that if the publisher is able to generate and collect money, they should be able to keep a percentage of that money for their services. And if they don't generate any income from your songs, their percentage is going to be, well, let's do a quick calculation. What's 10, 20 or 30% of nothing? Yep, you're right, it's nothing. So the idea of publishing is that they are incentivized to generate income from songs, collect that income and protect the copyright. So publishing is entirely an IP business. They don't manufacture anything. Publishers never manufactured CDs and sold them. They never made vinyl albums. What they did do, though, was administer the rights of the songwriter in relation to those products. So we've already looked at the concept of mechanical royalties, that the songwriter is entitled to get paid when their song is reproduced. Fine, that's great. That's where the publisher steps in and says, all right, well, this song is being reproduced, the songwriter is entitled to a payment, and it's our job to license that IP. And we've already heard about mechanical licenses and what that means. So publishers are not record companies. It's not an alternative name for a record company. It's an entirely different basis. Publishers are about the copyright in songs, and record companies make recordings that include the songs that the publisher administers or owns or controls. So it's a business based entirely in copyright. Now, you might be thinking, wow, I need to get myself a publisher. I'm a songwriter and these publishers are pretty good. Well, guess what? You already are one. If you don't have a publisher, you have those rights. You have the right to reproduce your work and the right to publicly communicate your work. So you are already a publisher. Now, you might be very capable of generating income from your songs. You might be very capable of collecting that income, and you might even have the capability of protecting the copyright in your songs yourself. Quite possible, but unlikely. You are the initial publisher of your own songs, but with all due respect, you're probably not a very good one. But all that the publisher is somebody that represents those rights, and until you have an external publisher, you are the representative of your own rights. So that is what we mean when we talk about a self-published artist. Self-published artists control their own catalogue and exercise the rights of the copyright owner. However, the publisher, a third-party publisher who does this for a living, is probably better at it than an individual songwriter. So a lot of people don't understand publishing. If you've hung in there for the last 10 minutes, you understand publishing probably a lot better than about 95% of artists out there. It's not that complex, but there is a lot of myths around publishing. Many young artists dismiss publishing as unimportant because they think that publishers put out the sheet music. Wow. They do a lot more than that. But I understand why they feel that way. You hear the word publishing and you think of publishing a magazine or publishing a newspaper or publishing a book. And so the only books that a songwriter would think about being published are books of their music, sheet music. That is one small part of the business of a publisher. And there's some horror stories that have emerged over the years about songwriters not understanding what publishing is. I'll briefly tell one. Tom Petty, one of the great artists of contemporary music, when he signed his first record deal, the record company put a publishing contract in front of him as well. And he went, oh, okay, publishing contract, fine. And he and his band, the Heartbreakers, all looked at each other and went, nah, who cares if the record company wants to put out sheet music? That's fine. You know, why would we even be bothered? Yeah, sure, we'll sign the publishing contract. What it meant is that his record company, who's not really even a publisher, owned the rights to his songs for a very long period of time. And in Tom's words, that was a piece of shit that stuck to my shoe for about 25 years. So it's really important not to think that music publishing is about sheet music. It's clearly not. It is one format of publishing your song, but by now you'll recognise that there are many other roles for the publisher. So that's the reason publishers exist. There's three things that they do that the songwriter may not be able to do for themselves, or at least as effectively as the publisher could. They protect the copyright in the songs entrusted to them. They seek to generate opportunities for those songs, income-earning opportunities, and then they have the responsibility of collecting the income that is generated from their work. Now, if you think about the role of a songwriter, the core role of what a songwriter does is write songs. They write musical compositions that hopefully people want a piece of in one form or another. And so if the publisher has the role of generating income from songs, collecting that income, and protecting the copyright that generates that income, the role of a publisher is vital to any songwriter. Many songwriters will happily say that the relationship with their publisher is by far the most important relationship they have in the music business. With that in mind, we'll obviously examine how publishers work and how songwriters can work with publishers in a lot more detail as we go along, but I wanted you to completely understand what publishing is and why publishers exist. All right. Hopefully that's a good intro to music publishing for you, and we'll power on through quite a few more lessons that will make you a better songwriter in terms of your business relationships. Thank you.